Welcome to the Happy Nightmares podcast.
Hey there, freaky dreamers. Patrick here with another episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast, where we talk about everything eerie, strange, and unexplained. And today, I am delving into my personal beliefs when it comes to the paranormal. And we talked about this kind of stuff a little bit in the very first episode, but I had a desire, a need to do another just pure opinion episode. And one of the best parts of doing an opinion episode like this is the possibility for continued discussion. So I'm just going to say, normally I do all this stuff at the end of the episode, but I'm just going to put a little blurb here for you too. If you aren't listening to this on YouTube, I definitely recommend that you head over there. The link is in the description of this episode. It's youtube.com/havehappynightmares. Hit that subscribe button and throw your 2 cents into the comments section of this episode. I really want to hear your perspectives on these things. I want to hear about your experiences and all of that, reasons why you think my beliefs are dumb. That's the whole point of this. You should be able to engage, and I love reading those comments, engaging, responding with your comments. So please take a minute, go over there, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. At the end of this episode, I'll give some additional ways that you can get in touch with us here at Happy Nightmares and join in the conversation if YouTube really isn't your bag, because that's fine. Today, we're going to talk about ghosts, we're going to talk about cryptids, we're going to talk about aliens, we're going to talk about parapsychology, and I'm going to do my best to explain why I do or do not believe in these things and what has led me to this state of mind. I am a lover of the paranormal. It's in my veins. And I'm a bit of a weirdo when it comes to this because I am an incredibly gullible person. I am very easily scared by horror films. I can freak myself out effortlessly in the dark hours of the night. And you would think, because my mind can so easily be afraid of what might be lurking in the shadows, that I believe something is actually there. And in that moment, maybe I do. But I don't believe that that represents my state of mind in all situations. I am aware that the human mind plays tricks on people. Hallucinations are a real thing, and they aren't always created by mind-altering drugs or mental illness or neurological misfires. Sometimes it is just your mind trying to fill in the gaps and supply missing information to the best of its ability, which results in seeing things or hearing things that aren't really there. So yes, in the moment, I might believe that someone is standing in the corner of my room in the middle of the night looking at me. But as soon as I turn on the light and verify that there isn't anything there, my mind corrects itself and the fear goes away. So, let's start with ghosts. Do I believe in ghosts? I believe that there are things that exist outside of our sense of sight. I don't know for sure if whatever those things are fall into the definition of ghost as it exists in our language, but I have had enough unexplainable things happen to me that I'm led to feel a certainty that there is something around us that we cannot see that, at least on occasion, has the ability to interact with our world physically. I've had drawers pulled out of my nightstand in the middle of the night. I've had vacuums turn on and doors open. I've had an experience where the little spring doorstop thing that stick out of the wall got twanged really loud when no one was anywhere near it. You can hear a detailed story of one of my experiences over on our Happy Nightmares YouTube channel, if you're not there right now, in the True Nightmares video called Music in the Night. And I'll also link directly to that video in the description of this episode. And if you are watching this on YouTube, there should be a link to it at the top of your screen right now, and there will be another one at the end of the video. Experiences like this really don't leave much room for doubt. That being said, I have no idea what these things are that cause these experiences. I've never seen an apparition. I don't believe anything has ever spoken to me to give me an identity or a voice to recognize. It could be a spirit, or it could just be an organism that is somehow invisible, that the human race has yet to officially find a way to identify and study. So the specificity of my belief in quote-unquote ghosts is lacking. But I do truly believe that there is something there. Personal experience plays such a big role in a person's belief system. I am a person who struggles heavily with blind faith. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. I like proof, and when it comes to things like ghosts, the fact that I've had experiences that line up with what other people have experienced as it relates to hauntings or ghostly encounters lends credibility in my mind. Someone else will listen to me recount my experiences and assume that I'm either lying or remember wrong or there is some other explanation, and that's just the end of it. Until they experience something for themselves, they won't be able to truly entertain the notion that it might be true. A lot of it also comes down to how open they are to such a truth. If one experiences something, they might have a really easy time brushing it off as nothing, if they really don't want to believe. I'm definitely a hopeful, and so when I experience something that gives me an inkling of evidence, I tend to latch onto it and use it to fuel my belief in something. Let's take UFOs, for example, or specifically the existence of extraterrestrial life. A long time ago, many moons when I was much younger, I was in the upstairs bathroom at the home in which I grew up, and I was looking out of the small bathroom window that provided a view of my backyard. It was nighttime, and just to paint the picture for you, as I'm looking out of this window, there's not a whole lot I can see, but basically what I'm looking at is I see my backyard, I see the fence. Out in the easement behind the backyard, there's one of those huge metal power line towers. Don't read into that. That doesn't explain anything. I promise that I lived that close to power lines. And I can see, kind of out across the neighborhoods that are behind my house. Down kind of a long street that goes that direction, and just out over the neighborhoods. So that's what I'm looking at. While I looked out of the window into the dark sky, I saw something go up into the sky. This thing had a strip of lights that were blinking in a pattern, and it went straight vertical up into the sky. It was pretty far away. I want to say that the lights were red, white, and blue, but I don't hold that part of it as fact because I don't believe my memory is good enough to retain details that deep. I know it wasn't an airplane. It was too big to be a drone. And this was way before drones were a big thing. It just kept going up, and it went up fast, and eventually it was out of sight. Is this proof of extraterrestrial life on Earth? No, it isn't. I didn't get a picture. I didn't get video. There were no cell phones at that point, or at least none that could take a video. I just have my memory, and that isn't proof to anyone except me. And it isn't even proof to me, because it's not like I saw aliens boarding a craft and then watched as that craft erupted into space. I truly don't know what it was. It was the definition of a UFO, unidentified flying object. But that doesn't mean it wasn't being piloted by an extraterrestrial, right? That experience opened my mind to the possibility. When you really take the time and think about how big the universe is, and the fact that other planets have been identified with similar qualities to Earth, or the discoveries that lead us to believe Mars was once an inhabited planet, it becomes really difficult to come to terms with the idea that this one planet is the only one in the entire universe that managed to develop intelligent life. And this makes a big point. I know I talked a minute ago about blind faith and how having evidence really goes a long way as far as my personal ability to believe in something. But there's another aspect of it too. And this really affects a topic we're really not going to get into here, which is religion and spirituality and that side of things. But it's just the logic side of things. If I can logically, in my mind, make a case for something being possible, then I'm pretty likely to not necessarily believe it's true, but to at least believe that it's possible. That little explanation I just went through on extraterrestrials and how it just seems dumb to assume that the universe, being so expansive, did not manage to produce intelligent life somewhere else in the universe. It has to be possible, and very likely, in my opinion, that it's out there somewhere. And look at how far into space we can look, but we can't travel. We're talking about light years of distance. Just because they may not be here, maybe all of the evidence we have of aliens here is complete baloney, and that's fine. But, we've been trying for a long time to get out into space, and we can see pretty far, which is an amazing accomplishment, honestly, but we can't get there. And the fact that we haven't really found anything yet definitive is not a big deal to me, because what we have been able to see is such a minute part of the universe. It's such a tiny slice of what is actually out there. And so, in my opinion, we just haven't found it yet. We will keep looking, we will keep traveling, we will keep getting further and further and further and finding ways to get out there, and eventually we'll find something. I truly believe that we will. But that carries, into all of the other things that we're talking about today. Going back to ghosts, it plays a part in that too. I've had experiences, and so that helps my belief. But also, if I just stop and think about it, there's so much that we don't understand about our existence. Yes, we have a heart that beats, and we have lungs that breathe, and we have a stomach that does this, and we have kidneys that do this, and all of the parts of us have a purpose. But at some point, that stuff just started working. There's not an on switch. It literally just started happening. Name one thing in this world that is man-made that just starts. No, you have to do something. You have to plug it in. You have to insert a battery. You have to pull energy from somewhere. And so it makes me wonder, where is that energy coming from? And once we die, that's just us running out of energy. Like, each person is born with a specific amount of energy inside of them, and when that energy is used up and runs out, we don't have a new battery we can put in. Like, our body, being biological instead of mechanical, it can't hold anymore. It's used up. We are the equivalent of a disposable camera compared to a digital camera. Once we get used, we're done. You can't put new film in a disposable camera. Does anybody listening to this know what a disposable camera is? I don't know, but it's probably a terrible analogy for the year 2021, but I'm using it anyway. But not knowing what that energy source is leads me to believe that that energy source could exist outside of our bodies, all around us. And I'm sure there are some scientists somewhere who know what that energy is, and it has a name, and I'm just dumb. But that's kind of where my logic comes in for ghosts. And getting back to extraterrestrials, sorry I digressed there for a second, but I know the arguments, they haven't found us yet. Why haven't they found us yet? Why isn't there proof? If they exist, wouldn't we know it? These are the same arguments that exist for everything paranormal, which is why they're still falling under that category of the unknown.
Hello, freaky dreamers. I hope you are having a fantastic day. The spooky season is fast approaching, and to celebrate, Happy Nightmares and the Nerd Asylum have partnered up to bring you the 2021 Happy Halloween Scary Story Competition. This short story contest is completely free to enter, and the winning entry will receive a merch prize pack from both Happy Nightmares and the Nerd Asylum, as well as a $100 Amazon gift card. The top 5 entries will have their stories narrated by me and posted up on the Happy Nightmares YouTube channel, released on our podcast, and available to read in print at thenerdasylum.com. For full submission guidelines and contest details, visit www.thenerdasylum.com. That's www.thenerdasylum.com. Happy writing.
Okay, so let's move on. How about something a little closer to home, meaning Earth? Bigfoot, Sasquatch. And I'm focusing on them, but really we're just talking about cryptids here. Hundreds of other names from different cultures around the world used to identify tall figures falling somewhere between human and ape with massive feet. There have been supposed sightings of these creatures all over the world, in the woods, in cities, in suburban neighborhoods, People have found footprints in the ground, tufts of hair or fur, broken trees and scratched trunks. People have taken fuzzy photos and distorted videos. The list of proven hoaxes is extensive. And so where to stand on this issue, or the topic of any strange cryptid for that matter, I'm a pretty split bag on this topic. If there's anything I'm most skeptical of, it is cryptids, and I'll talk about why. For the sake of anyone listening, first of all, who might not be familiar with the term cryptid, it simply means an animal or a creature that has been claimed to exist but never proven to exist. They don't have to be supernatural or mythical. Some of them aren't even all that strange, but in many cases, the legends of these beings is developed and embellished over the years as they grow into these interesting and diverse legends like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, or even to some degree creatures like Siren Head that are so bizarre and out of this world and much harder to believe. I struggle with these the most because these are creatures that supposedly live here among us in our world as their native location. Aliens exist in outer space, so the possibility that we haven't found them yet is believable. Ghosts can be invisible, so there is a solid reason for why we don't have valid proof of their existence. Given the technology that we possess and have implemented within our military to locate missing people and terrorists, it seems unlikely that we would be unable to find definitive proof that a massive ape man either does or does not roam in the forest. However, I have to leave room for speculation and possibility. It is in my nature, as I said earlier, to want to believe in these things. So, how could these creatures have avoided detection to the extent that they have when so many people live on this earth with the capacity to stumble upon them at any moment? And the first one is lack of resources, or limited availability of resources is probably a better way to use that. The claimed evidence that we do have that hasn't been officially disproven consists primarily of first-hand accounts. People have fallible memories. People have active imaginations. People have a natural desire for fame, fortune, notability, all things that would drive a person to falsify such a claim. When I say lack of resources, I'm referring to the technology that we possess as a civilization that could be used to locate such a creature. When we do have terrible people that need to be found, or missing people that need to be located on a fairly consistent basis, unfortunately, diverting those resources to something like finding Bigfoot is probably not high on the priority list. Now, I will be completely honest, I have no idea if anyone has actually attempted to use advanced technology
When I first
to
saw
track
her
down
standing
cryptids.
upright.
That's on me and my lack of motivation to do extensive actual research and stuff.
This isn't.
I'm
this
giving
is not
mainly
real.
my opinions here. Perhaps someone has already attempted this
The way
and
it's
come out
like a
empty,
massive
which is a really
muscle.
big tally mark in the BS side of the argument for whether or not a cryptid exists. If not, then there is an opportunity there. If
Roger
someone
had the
can
camera
find a
up
way
to
to
his
do
eye.
it.
He stumbled and fell.
Another possibility for how these things go
Where you're
unnoticed
seeing
is just that they
shaking
have
apart.
abilities that we don't understand. Abilities that
I rode
definitely fall
across the
into
creek.
the realm of the supernatural or the paranormal just because
Got
we don't
off the
understand
horse
them.
and took
The
my rifle
ability
stabber.
to drastically
In case I had to
camouflage
make a shot.
themselves, to resist detection, and the intellect to put that ability to good use.
She made that
From
turn
the
to look.
outside in, the human race is not all that spectacular. Obviously, there are good people, but in a general perspective,
Kept right on
we are
walking.
constantly finding ways to hurt each other mentally,
went on up
emotionally,
out of sight,
physically.
up that
We
canyon.
don't take care of our environment. We value our individual rights far more than we value the well-being of our brothers and sisters. If I was Bigfoot, I would
All
be
this
just as
time, I'm
eager to
thinking,
maintain
holy
solitude
mackerel,
and
these things do
separation
exist.
from humans for as long as possible. And maybe they are just really good at making that happen. There are so many places on this earth that remain undiscovered. Cave systems and the deep ocean as examples. It is 100% guaranteed that there are things out there that we have no idea exist. And it is certainly possible that these glimpses of cryptids are instances where these unknown creatures have ventured out of their normal hidden habitats out of curiosity or necessity or whatever, and happened to stumble upon a stunned human who managed to snap a quick blurry pic before it disappeared back into hiding. Getting away from physical beings or spirits, let's talk for a minute about some of the paranormal abilities that people have claimed to have over the years. These are things that border on superpowers, talking about telepathy, telekinesis, empaths, mediums, etc. These are things that I remember sitting and trying to do as a kid, and I know I've talked about this before, but we're doing it again because it's my podcast. We would try to see if we could send messages to each other with our minds, and were amazed when it worked every once in a blue moon because we were thinking of a number between 1 and 10 and just happened to guess correctly. I remember sitting and staring at a pencil and becoming convinced that if I just concentrated hard enough, I would be able to roll it across the table by just willing it to do so. I've tried to stop time. I've tried to travel through time just by concentrating. I've tried to make contact with the dead. The bad news is that I've never been even remotely successful in any of these attempts. I have no supernatural abilities or superpowers, but there are people who might. Now, just to clarify, I'm not talking about scientific studies where people have been connected to brain electrodes and used EEG to transmit signals from one brain to another. I found a ton of those articles. Telepathy is real now. It's actually happened, but it's not. We're just using computers and technology to imitate what we're trying to talk about. I'm fully aware that science has been able to mimic telepathy in its most simplistic form, but what I'm talking about is people who have the ability to do this without being hooked up to machines. I recently read through an article, and by recently, I mean as I'm writing this episode, that discussed the twin connection and twin telepathy, and there were some freaky examples in there. I thought of that because my wife and I happen to be watching the show Manifest right now, and we're never going to know how this ends because it was canceled after season 3 with a bunch of cliffhangers. Anyway, I'm getting off topic again, but there's twins on that show who share a connection like this and are connected in interesting ways. But in this article, there were twins who had the exact same dream on the same night. There was a story about a twin who had a broken blood vessel in her elbow and then found out later that it was at the exact location where her twin had gotten a blood test done. There was a video of 2 toddler twins who were playing, and randomly they both jumped up and fell on their butts in the exact same way at the exact same time. That may sound dumb, but it was really kind of incredible to watch because they were just climbing around on a rock or something like that, like minding their own business, and just out of nowhere, they both jumped up in the air and then fell back on their butts. And they weren't even facing each other. Like, they were facing away from each other, I remember, because one of them was facing the camera and we were seeing the back of the other one. It basically looked like we were looking at a mirror, but it was outdoors, like there was obviously not a mirror there. This was not video editing. It was very clear and really interesting to watch. There are shared symptoms and parents who have to medicate both twins when they are sick because they don't know which one actually needs it. In these cases, it isn't a person listening into another person's thoughts intentionally or taking control of another person's actions, but it is a wireless connection between 2 human minds, and those stories have always fascinated me. I'm not sure what to make of all of these psychic powers. I truly believe that they could be real, some of them to some extent, but this one it's really a rabbit hole. There's so many factors to take into consideration. Eventually, you get into discussions of alternate timelines in the multiverse and what connections might exist between different versions of ourselves, and maybe we could move things in another timeline with our mind because we imagine moving it here, which in turn causes another version of ourselves to actually carry out that action. So we are trying to move a pencil across the table with our mind, which causes another version of ourselves on another parallel timeline to actually reach out and move a pencil with their hand. And so we don't see it happen, but we have unknowingly impacted the item in that parallel universe. It gets really convoluted really fast. So that's a really long discussion in itself, and maybe I'll do a whole episode on parapsychology or whatever. But you know, what's really interesting is that not only is something paranormal if it hasn't been proven true, these things have also not been proven false. The fact that they are paranormal means that the possibility is left open, and that it could be real or it could not. We don't know one way or the other. I will always lead toward the possibility that they could be real. It's a glass half full kind of approach, and I will be excited if new evidence comes to light that supports that. Of course, I will remain open to something being disproven. I don't want to be led on, but the possibility is what makes life so exciting. No one knows what's coming, but we have to be ready for anything. Thank you everyone so much for listening to this episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast. If your podcast platform allows you to rate the podcast or leave a review, please take a few seconds to do that. It will help this podcast show up for more people in their suggested shows and genre searches. If you haven't already, please visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/havehappynightmares. There you will be able to enjoy horror fiction narrated by yours truly, true accounts of experiences with the paranormal, dark instrumental music, and behind-the-scenes author introspectives. You will also find the video version of this podcast, where you can enjoy photos and video clips associated with the topics we are discussing. Be sure to poke that little red subscribe button so you don't miss out on all of the creepy content you crave, and if you feel so inclined, please like the videos and leave comments letting us know what you thought. For more information on upcoming topics for both this podcast and the Happy Nightmares YouTube channel, follow us on social media. We are at Have Happy Nightmares on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and we are YT Happy Nightmare with no E on the end on Twitter, because Twitter handles can't be long enough, and someone had already taken Happy Nightmares. So whoever you are, just, yeah, you know. Do you have a topic idea or story idea, or just want to give me a piece of your mind? Shoot us an email at havehappynightmares@gmail.com or visit the Happy Nightmares subreddit and join the conversation there. All of these things are linked in the description of this episode, no matter what platform you're on. Thank you again so much for being here and for listening to this episode of the Happy Nightmares podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and I can't wait to talk at you again in the next episode. Until then, and as always, happy nightmares.
This has been the Happy Nightmares podcast. Visit our YouTube channel, Happy Nightmares, for more of the creepy content you crave.